Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is October 19th, 2007, and I am super grateful for that sobriety date. And I'm really grateful to be participating in your meeting. I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I don't do a lot of Zoom meetings, but Eric's been so kind to send me the link since he asked me to share. And I got to jump on one time on a drive home from LA with my son, and we listened to a message together, and then two other times. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you are all here too, so we can help keep each other sober. So, my home group is called the 12th Tradition Big Book Study. We meet on Monday nights in Folsom, California at 7 o'clock. If you're ever in Northern California, come by and see us. What I love most about my home group is we stay rooted in this book, which contains the solution for every problem I've ever had. And I imagine it contains a solution for every one I will ever have. And I love my home group a lot. And I have a sponsor. Her name's Lisa M, and she has been my sponsor for probably 16 years now. And what I love most about my sponsor is when I ask her a question and I ask for some direction, her that it starts. And she says to me, "Well, honey, our book says," and then she tells me what the book says. And she doesn't make up stuff she doesn't have experience with, and she doesn't give me opinion. She gives me the solution directly out of this book, and I love that about her. I have the supreme privilege of sponsoring some other women in this area, and I'll share a little bit about that later. But let me tell you, writing down somebody's name on page 164, when we get to that page, there is nothing like it. And the only reason I'm still sober today is because my sponsor told me I need to do that work to carry this message if I want to stay sober, and I super believe her. And I run with this crazy crew of alcoholics in Sacramento. We have insane Alcoholics Anonymous in Sacramento. We have over 1,000 meetings a week. And the people that I run with, I don't even know how to describe them other than to say if I'm not really busy in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to feel pretty uncomfortable around them because they are just running around doing God's work, and I love it. And they're a great group of people. So, thanks, Eric, again for asking me to participate in your meeting tonight. I love the enthusiasm and the games and all that. It's a lot of fun. So let me get drunk and get sober. I took my first drink when I was 13, and I had literally no reason to take that drink other than it was there. I had a beautiful childhood. About the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me as a kid was my parents came to me when I was 9 and said, "We're going to get a divorce," which I thought was super weird because I never heard them fight one time. So I don't have any drama in my childhood. But at the age of 13, I had moved to California from Colorado, and I was back visiting my dad for the summer. And my friend Alexis, she had stolen, I don't know, 4 or 5 room temperature Pabst Blue Ribbon beers from her parents. And we cracked those open and passed them around the billiards table in her basement. And I mean, I didn't need a drink when I took that drink, but I can tell you, I remember clearly what happened that day. And there were two thoughts that I had. And the first thought, I thought, God, I sure wish there was more. And the second thought I had was, oh man, I hope I don't get in trouble because my friend Wendy Smith, her mom was coming to pick us up in her wood paneled station wagon. And I'm like, if she smells alcohol on our breath, she's going to tell my mom. And those two thoughts, some version of I'm going to run out or I need more, and I hope I don't get in trouble, would be two thoughts I would have every single time that I would drink from the age of 13 to when I got sober when I was 37. I wouldn't drink again with what I would say was regularity till I was 16. And this beautiful thing happened when I turned 16. I had a really busy social life and I was in competitive sports, both at school and in club ball. And my mom never wanted to drive me anywhere ever again. So she's like, get your license, here's a car. Like, I'm never transporting you anywhere ever again. And I instantly gained access to the double life that was, I mean, it was so awesome. So I could tell my mom I was going to the movies, And as long as I read the review, and back in the day for you youngsters, we had to like read it in the paper, Siskel and Ebert. Now you just go on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. But I could relay to my mom what the movie was about, and I could go to some, party that somebody was having that I was in high school with. Or I could say I was going to the high school basketball game, and I could go over the hill to Santa Cruz and, sit on the beach at the bonfire with the keg. And I mean, I lived this double life like right out of the gates from the age of 16. And I developed, that obsession with drinking very quickly. If I was not currently drinking, I am super hustling how I'm going to accomplish it. And, is somebody's brother home from college that's 21? Do we know someone with a fake ID? Are we shoulder tapping? Is that liquor store still selling to minors this week? Or did they get busted again? Just like how. And I just thought about drinking all the time. And nothing is wrong. I don't need a drink. I just like a drink. And when I read in the big book, years later about how, we drink because we like the effect produced by alcohol, I'm like, that's it for me, man. I love to be drunk. I love that feeling. And I start just hustling how I'm going to drink as much as I possibly can. And I had a very important job when I was 16, 17, and 18 in high school. I had a keg in the trunk of my car at all times because I don't know if you guys remember how, expensive it was to pay that deposit when you wanted to get a keg every time. So we just made sure that we had our own, which we stole off the porch of a bar in Los Gatos, which I would later have to go in and make amends for, which was fantastic. But that was my very important job. I'm 17 and it's the first time I have the thought that I might be alcoholic. And I have no idea what an alcoholic is at the age of 17. But I can tell you that I recognize that I drink more than my friends. I drink more than I intend to drink. And like when I go to pick you up to go out, we don't have to stop around the corner for you to grab some bottles of liquor out from under the bushes. But if you come to pick me up, like we're doing that kind of stuff. And you don't have liquor stashed in the bottom of your closet under blankets, but I do. And I just recognize that there's some differences between other kids and me when it comes to drinking. I recognize in the morning that I'm feeling guilt and remorse and shame about how I behaved the night before. And I just remember the thought, God, I wonder if I'm alcoholic. No, I'm not planning on doing anything about it, but I thought that. And, I'm pulling off my double life. Okay, I have pretty good grades and I'm in sports. And, my parents think I'm a reasonably good kid and your parents think I'm okay. And I just am getting by pretty good. And I get into college and, dream party school, UC Santa Barbara, and off I go. And at the age of 18, I become a daily drinker. And I drink every day to complete oblivion at that school. And I would discover later when I would go through my inventory with my sponsor that I had kind of methodically created this alcoholic haven for myself because I hung out with all these different groups of people, but never the same people every day. So nobody knew I was drinking to oblivion 7 days a week. I don't know why I thought anybody would care, but I was hiding it for sure. So, on Monday nights, I'm drinking with other kids from my high school that also are going to school there. And on Tuesday, I might be drinking with kids on my dorm floor. And on Wednesday, I'm at somebody else's dorm drinking with them. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's all fraternity parties and Del Playa and all that. So that's really easy. And Sunday is most normal people are toning it down, because they're going to get ready to start school for the week, but not I. I find these two guys, Doug and Daryl, and I don't even know where I came up with these two guys, but if you took the cartoon Beavis and Butthead and you made them from cartoon form to like real life humans, they looked exactly like that. They were hilarious, but we went so hard on Sunday nights. It was unbelievable. And I was drinking to complete oblivion 7 days a week. The result of that is 2.5 years into college. I have what I guess I'd call an alcoholic nervous breakdown of some sort. And I call my mom and I throw up on this poor woman, essentially a fifth step that she certainly does not want to hear. And she said, it sounds like maybe you ought to come home for a little bit. So I drop out of school and I come home. This is like March. And she took me to a counselor, and this counselor would put in front of me this really long questionnaire. It was about 100 questions, and it was about alcohol and drugs and behaviors. And it was kind of one of those questionnaires that ask the same question like four different ways, backwards and forward, so you're not answering differently. But we sat down, the three of us, in the counselor's office. So it's counselor, my mom, and myself. And it was very like, the Maury Povich show, like the results are in. And I was diagnosed as being borderline alcoholic. And I was like, whoo. And, I wasn't like relieved for myself. I was relieved for my mom. And my mom's sister had been alcoholic and she went to rehab for the first time when she was 20. And her upbringing was chaotic because of her alcoholic sister. And my mom's mom, the best I can tell from stories, was probably a dry drunk her whole life. And she was often restless, irritable, and discontented for sure. I remember growing up. But this borderline diagnosis I thought might give my mom some hope that I would be okay. But I also knew that I'd lied on like half the question. So there wasn't really any question in my mind right then about whether or not I was alcoholic. But I'm 21 and I don't really have my sights set on, going to Alcoholics Anonymous or being a sober person. But what I did understand at that point is I probably needed to quit for a little bit. And so I did. And our book talks about that, right? Like there's many times that I can quit earlier in my drinking career for some sufficient reason until I can't. And that's what happened to me. So this was about March, and I would not take a drink until August when I transferred schools. And I decided to transfer to this small, private, quiet little Christian college because probably if I hang around with these nice, quiet Christian kids, I'm going to act better. And you guys, I was there probably 5 hours and I was hammered in a dive bar with the entire basketball team. And I just, I gravitate towards my people quickly. The advantage of being in that school is my classes were only like 30 kids instead of 300. So my professors actually knew if I was at school, so I was going to class. So I graduate from that college. It's like 1993. I meet a him who makes a tactical error in deciding he wants to marry me a few years later. We get jobs, we're putting together a life. We get a house and it looks okay from the outside, but what's happening inside the walls is there's some conversations that are starting to happen in our home. And he's saying things to me like this, God, Carrie, we're not in college anymore. God, Carrie, do you really have to drink every day? God, Carrie, maybe you could just have beer instead of the hard stuff. And while those may sound like reasonable suggestions to a normal drinker, to an alcoholic of my type, that's complete insanity to even talk about, right? I know we're not in college anymore, and this adulting thing is super boring, and I don't really like it. Why would I not drink on a day that ends in Y? Because that seems like as good of a day as any. And why wouldn't I drink the hard stuff? Because it's going to produce the effect that I love faster than anything else. And like any good, wife, partner, I'm going to tone it down for a little bit to show him that I'm not alcoholic, but I always pick up again. So I have a number of, probably 8, 9, 10, 30-day quits, from 1993 to 2007. And nobody was more surprised than me the last time I tried to quit and found out that I could not. But I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So, our life is going on, and I really have no reason to drink at all. I have a great life. There is nothing wrong. But as I mentioned earlier, I just love feeling drunk. What happens the next day that I don't love is some feelings of like, oh no, am I in trouble? What did I do? Where am I exactly? Who did I offend? Like what happened? And I don't really like that feeling, but that feeling is easily overcome by drinking again, right? I don't have to think about it if I just can stay drunk. And that's kind of what I set about doing. The last time I was sober for any significant amount of time was in the year 2000. So my son Ryan was born in August of 2000, August of 2000. So pretty much all of 2000, I was sober during his pregnancy. Well, at least once I knew I was pregnant, I was sober. And Ryan's birthday's on August 1st. And on August 4th, he's 4 days old. I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm holding this ice cold Sierra Nevada. It was really, really hot. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday, and that bead of condensation dripping down that green label. And I just, I'm having this conversation with myself like, you should not drink that drink. And of course, I drank that drink. I'm alcoholic. I'm going to drink the drink. And within about 5 months, my life looks like this. My friend got engaged. I'm going to the engagement party. I'm going to have one glass of champagne. I'm going to take Ryan with me so my friends can meet him. And what happens is I get home. I've been driving all over town, completely hammered with this infant in the car, right? Complete like felony child endangerment. And I get home and I'm greeted by my husband who's looking at me like, where have you been? What the hell are you doing? And give me our child, and takes that child out of my arms. And, just this look of disgust on his face. And I didn't mean for that to happen. I was just going for one glass of champagne, right? And I think he's going to go back in the house, and instead he gets in his car. And I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to the airport to pick up your dad. He's coming to visit us tonight. Don't you remember? And I don't remember that because as soon as I drink, all I think about is the next drink and the next drink and the next drink. And I don't remember anything else, and nobody and nothing else matters to me at that point. And, when Ryan was about one, he started to crawl a little funny, and we took him to the doctor, and we went through a series of tests, and in 2001 he was diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease. It's called spinal muscular atrophy. And the doctors, tell us if his life expectancy is 28. He's going to be in a wheelchair his whole life. He's going to need constant care, being fed, bathed, toileted, all the things. Doesn't affect him cognitively, thank God, but this is how it's going to be. And we're standing in the parking lot after that, and and my husband says to me, God, do you think Ryan's going to ever get to be a dad? And I thought it was the strangest question because I certainly was not thinking about what Ryan was going to get to do or not get to do. What this selfish alcoholic was thinking about was how it was going to impact my life, right? And oh, I can't believe this. I'm not going to get to be the mom of the star quarterback on the football team. And I'm not going to get to be a mom that gets to watch her kid hit a home run in Little League. And I'm going to be the mom that has to, feed and change clothes and take him to the bathroom. And, I'm going to be the mom whose kid never goes to college and never leaves the house. He's one, and I like can't wait for him to move out already. And I see everything from such a selfish lens. That's really what I was thinking of. And, I'm driving home and I'm thinking about crashing the car into the freeway pylon because I can't even imagine how we're going to do this. And every connection I ever had to a higher power, which I had a lot as a child, was completely severed at that point. I can't believe God did this to me. He's dead to me, right? And my relationship with God was severed completely until I got sober. And I sometimes get afraid I'm going to run out of time and forget to talk about my son Ryan, because sometimes people come up to me in a meeting when that's happened and they're like, "Did he die?" So he didn't die. He's about to turn 25 next week, and Ryan was part of the football team. Actually, I got to be a football mom. He was a manager and a quarterback coach for the football team and has a letter jacket, and I got to work Snack Shack and all that nonsense. And it was great. And he just graduated with his master's degree in public policy from UC Berkeley. And he had a little side gig where he was the president of all the graduate students, 64,000 graduate students. across the whole UC system. And one of the last things he got to do in that role was speak at a retirement party for the president of the UC who was retiring. And he sent me the little schedule of who was speaking, and it was like, the board of directors of the UC Board of Regents, and then some chancellor from UC Davis and chancellor from UC Irvine, and then my son, and then a senator, and then another senator, right? And it's like he's had the craziest life. And, I cursed God for so long for doing this to me. And, I just had so much despair, like, what's going to happen to this child? And, meanwhile, God's like, lady, hold my beer. Let me do some work here, right? And anyway, he has a great life today, and I'm so grateful that he's just exactly the way he is. But it wasn't like that at that time. And at that time, I don't think I have a memory or a photo for about 3 years after that. I drank so hard at that problem. It was the first time I ever had something to really drink at, and I drank at it hard. And we moved to a different area. I quit work. It started to look like I'd take him to kindergarten at 8 o'clock, and at 8:01 I'd start drinking. And that went on for, I don't know, probably 5 years. And the starting and stopping was attempted, but it was failing. Like, I'd try to quit for 30 days again, and I'd maybe make it 7. And our book talks about, gradually things got worse, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse for me. And what it felt like to me every day when I woke up. I mean, I haven't even opened my eyes yet, and here's the, rapid thought process that's happening in my head before my eyes are even open. I'm just like, oh no, where am I going to be when I wake up? And oh no, who's going to be here with me? And oh no, like, what happened on text? Oh no, is the car here? Is it crashed? Do I have any injuries, right? And all of this is before I even open my eyes in the morning. And it's a horrific way to wake up every day. I mean, it's just awful. And so I wake up in all this fear and madness and terror. And, I make this promise, like, I'm not going to do that again. And by 10 o'clock, I don't know why it's always 10 o'clock. I always hear this when people share. By 10 o'clock, my brain does this crazy thing, and it tells me this lie and this justification and rationalization of why it wasn't my fault that happened to me, right? And maybe it's, oh, I didn't eat enough. And if I just didn't eat on or drink on a semi-empty stomach, I wouldn't have gotten that drunk. Or if I didn't mix those alcohols, I wouldn't have gotten that drunk. If we would have gone home at second to last call instead of last call, like, I wouldn't have gotten that drunk. Anytime tequila's involved, tequila's the great scapegoat. If there just wasn't tequila, it would have been fine. And my brain believes the lie, and then I attempt the whole thing over again that night and try drinking again, and the same thing happens. Thank God for me. I'm very grateful I don't have a gray area. Other than the first time I drank, I have one other time where I drank even halfway what somebody would call normally. I had the flu. I, of course, had to have some Southern Comfort because it does the trick for a sore throat. I was trying to drink a couple beers, and I was just literally so sick I could not drink. And other than that time and the first time I drank, I don't have any incidents of normal drinking. And I'm grateful for that, because there is no question for me what happens if I take a drink today. So, we are in 2007, and I'm doing the hamster wheel of getting insanely drunk, waking up saying I'm not going to do it again today, rationalizing why it wasn't my fault, getting insanely drunk, right? And doing that over and over again for most of 2007. And about 90 days before I get to Alcoholics Anonymous in October, it changes a little bit. The first thought's, I'm not going to do that today. And now a thought slides in right behind it. Yes, I am. And there's not a damn thing I can do about it. And I'm drinking against my will, and I'm drinking terrified from the first sip. I mean, I can't even enjoy a cocktail, because from the first sip, I'm like, this is not going to go well, man. And my last drink was at a place called Folsom Lake Bowl. And, I wasn't going to drink that night, and somebody pushed a drink my way as I was playing poker with the boys. And I got insanely drunk that night. And thank God those people took my keys away from me and made me sit there for several hours until I went behind the cage and grabbed them and then one-eyed at home. But I cannot describe that next morning. It was like all the other mornings of the terror and madness and remorse and guilt and shame all put together into one morning. And when Bill talks about, waking up and feeling like there's quicksand all around me, I mean, it felt like quicksand all around me. And I'm from Land of the Lost TV show when I was a kid. So quicksand's like the real deal, man. But, I woke up that morning and I was really, really sick. My body was starting to really shut down from the effects of alcoholism. And I went to the furthest bathroom from our bedroom so he didn't hear me getting sick. And I just laid my head on the side of the toilet and just said, God, help me. And God would put a thought in my head, which funny enough was to put pen to paper. And I didn't know anything about taking inventory or putting pen to paper at that time. Um, but I wrote my then husband a letter and I said, Tom, I'm alcoholic and I need help, and please don't let me go back on it this time. And I woke that poor man up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I handed him this letter and he read the letter and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to call Danny. And I called my friend Danny, who had been 4 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous at this time. And you guys, I had to know a guy like Danny because I thought if I ever quit drinking, I was never going to smile again. I was never going to laugh. My life would be a walking funeral procession. I really thought it would be the biggest downer ever. And but I knew Danny and he'd been the king of all partiers. He was pretty sure this bar would shut down if he didn't have his monthly bar tab there anymore. But Danny was sober 4 years in AA and having a blast. And you could see that on his face, right? And so I called Danny. It's maybe 5:30 in the morning and he answers his phone. Hey girl, what's up? Chipper as could be. And I was like, hey, I can't quit drinking. I need some help. And he said, I know. And so he talked with me for a while and we'd hop in the car and he would take me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous over in Roseville. And when we were driving over there, I said, God, I'm so sorry I called you that time of day, but you were wide awake. And he goes, yeah, I was just doing a daily prayer and meditation. And I had just asked God to put somebody in my path that I could help that day. And it was you. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And so we walk up to the meeting and I was super discouraged. I didn't know how it had come to this. Like, when did I lose the upper hand on my drinking? And I just, man, the wheels really came off here. And I was really kind of baffled by that. And this lady, who was Danny's sponsor's wife, she comes trotting up in the parking lot and she says, hi, I'm Tina. I came tonight because I told Danny I would come, but I can't stay. We got a babysitting conflict. My husband's going to stay. I got to go home with our daughter. Would you like to come to my house? And I was like, yes, because I'd far rather go to some perfect stranger's house. I'd never met her before than sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with all of you losers, right? I was like mortified to be there. So we went to her house and something really important happened for me that I believe has to happen for every alcoholic, and that's identification with another alcoholic. And man, I identified with her instantly. She told me her story. She asked me how I'd been living and kind of how I got there. And she opened up the book to page 31, where it says, here are the methods, some of the methods we have tried, right, to quit drinking on our own. And in that paragraph on page 31, there's 18 items, and she's reading them, and I'm ticking them off, and I'm becoming kind of alarmed because I can see the cover on the book says Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is fitting me to a T. The only ones I'm not checking off, I hadn't been to a health farm or sanitarium or had voluntary commitment to an asylum. And because laziness is one of my character defects, I'm certainly not engaging in, intensive physical exercise. But all the rest of them, I'm like, tried it, failed, 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 failed. And she also read to me the story of the jaywalker. And at the end of that story, this crazy guy that keeps walking into traffic and he can't seem to not do it, no matter how much the injury is that he sustains. And at the end of that story, when it says if we substituted alcohol for jaywalking, like, wouldn't that fit us, that description exactly? And I was nailed on that because I know every time I take a drink, it does not turn out well. I mean, every time. And I can't seem to not do it. And I feel like a crazy person because of that. And, she shared her story with me, and she tells me at the end of her story, that because of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, she doesn't have to take a drink no matter what. And these words, no matter what, kind of float out over the dining room table. And I said, man, that's great for you, Tina. And then, the mating call of the newcomer. But you don't understand. And I proceed to tell her how my no matter what is harder than anybody else's no matter what that's ever graced the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she says, Carrie, it sounds like you got some tough stuff going on, and we all do. And she said, my husband and I, our son passed away, and neither of us have taken a drink over that. And I was like, oh gosh, that's terrible. When did that happen? And she said, it was about 3 weeks ago now. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know anything that day. But what I know now is that she took time that night to save my sorry newcomer alcoholic butt. But at the same time, I was saving hers too. And we just kind of do that for each other so that we don't have to take a drink. And I tootled off from her house, and I had one whole day sober. And I went to a meeting the next night, and there was this old geezer that was the chairperson, and he's got this bushy mustache, and he used to be in a biker gang. And I'm like, he's nothing like me. But he told the same story that I'd been living, drinking against his will every time he drank, totally to oblivion, just like it talks about in the doctor's opinion. His brain would convince him that he could do it okay the next time. Had no God in his life whatsoever, so he had to drink. And he'd come to Alcoholics Anonymous, he'd done some things, and he hadn't had a drink, and it was 27 years at that time. He still sits in my home group with me. And I didn't know what the things were he was saying. I've done some things, and haven't had a drink since, but he was talking about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went to a meeting the next night, met several people, got up at the podium, used to drink like I did, came to Alcoholics Anonymous, did some things, and hadn't had a drink in 30 days, 90 days, 2 years, 8 years, 25 years. And I didn't know what was happening there, but people seemed to be staying sober. And so I started like doing what people were doing, right? Okay, I'll get a sponsor. I got a home group. I got a greeting commitment. And maybe to the untrained eye, I looked like I was doing Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm lying to my sponsor. I'm, leaving meetings and going and behaving in outlandish ways, the same way I did when I was drunk. And I'm kind of surprised the next morning how I feel all this remorse and guilt and shame, and I can't blame it on alcohol anymore. And it's disturbing. It's not a good feeling. And what happens for me as a result of being a complete AA faker is 9.5 months away from a drink. I'm standing underneath this sign that says mental health services. And I mean, the wheels are really coming off, and they're asking me like, am I going to harm myself? And I said, I don't know if I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill somebody else. I'm going to drink. I haven't had a drink in over 9 months, and I'm going crazy. And what was occurring for me is, I'm an alcoholic. I can't wake up and do, today's Sunday. I can't wake up and do Sunday. That doesn't work for me. And I have to do something. I have to drink, and then I will feel okay. People around me won't be okay because I'll overshoot the mark, but I will solve my problem by drinking. Or I have to have a sufficient substitute, this spiritual solution that our 12 steps provide. And I'm not drinking, and I'm not engaged in the steps. And I'm in an alcoholic purgatory, man. And it is so much darker than any day I was ever out there drinking. I'm just like, it is rough. And I get in enough pain, and thank God I don't drink. But I kind of get catapulted into doing AA for real. And I end up getting a different sponsor that when she sits down the first time with me to talk about if she's going to sponsor me and how she's going to sponsor me, because she's been watching me be full of it for a little bit in meetings. She just looks at me across the table at this coffee place, and she says, you know what? Why don't you tell me the 5 things that you are never going to tell me? And why don't you just tell them to me right here, right now? And I paused because I'm terrified. And she says, "It's okay. Let me tell you mine first." And she tells me her 5 worst things. And I mean, we're crying and we're laughing because they're tragic but hilarious. And I somehow have enough courage to tell her mine. Now, we would go back to the preface in the big book and we'd read the preface and all the forewords and the first 164 pages thoroughly together. And she took me through the steps, line by line, page by page. And when it told us to do something, then we did it together. And I found, first of all, that I wasn't as far away from God as I thought. I was mad at him, yes, but I wasn't really that far away. And I could entertain the idea that I needed him in my life again in order to stay sober. When we sat down and took inventory, I was very surprised. I mean, I'm the delusional alcoholic that will tell you, I am such a great wife. I threw a 40th birthday party for my husband with all his friends, but I don't see the part how I also have, 2 boyfriends over here on the side. I'll tell you that I'm a great mom because you'll see me like with this disabled kid and I look like, oh, I'm this strong mom. But what you don't know about me is that every time I go to the grocery store, all I want to do is keep driving. And I mean, I want to keep driving to Florida and never come back to this life. And I don't want to engage in the life that I'm in. And, but she just walks me through a step at a time. And when I sat down and did my 5th step with her, there was nothing that was left off. There's not a single secret that I have from that woman. And I never thought I would be able to say that. And if you're holding something back from your sponsor on your 5th step, I mean, I just implore you to get off of this meeting and call them up because once that happened for me, the only way I can even describe it, I mean, I don't even feel like I orbit on the same planet as I did before that time. Now, I didn't leave that 5th step feeling delighted the way the book talks about. I left there feeling low and dirty and gross, but I did feel like I had done something I had never done before and that maybe people who had done this and seemed to be happy, joyous, and free, maybe they were onto something, and I was now on that path. And I started to be able to hear things that I couldn't hear before. Um, we spent a lot of time working on my character defects, and my sponsor would ask me which ones are plaguing me the most, and maybe we need to work real hard on those. And she would ask me to take action on some of those, not just like think my way out of, not being promiscuous, but am I willing to delete the guy's phone number sitting with her right there? And I was willing to do that. And am I willing to, go back into the, store when I didn't pay for the soda because I got the water cup and embarrassing things like that. And I started doing those things and I started to have my head just hit the pillow a little bit softer at night and not look at myself in the mirror the next day with that same look of disgust that I had before. And it just, we chipped at it away a little bit at a time. And it was time to make the amends. And all I can say about amends is I was terrified, like many people I hear are terrified. And the way I describe it to my girls now is an acronym called NATO, not attached to outcomes. I tell them, don't get attached to the outcome, right? It doesn't matter what happens on the other side of it. It matters what you bring forth and what you do to try to clear this up to the best of your ability. And the reaction on the other end is just not really any of your business or under your control, excuse me. So I made those amends and man, I started to feel good. I started to feel free. I started to feel useful. I started to feel hopeful. Things were really changing really quickly. And I have a great sponsor she's really on par with her like prayer and meditation game. And so she just kind of told me, this is what I do. This is what I read every morning. These are the prayers that I say. And I just simply mimicked a woman who seemed to be comfortable in her own skin. And I'm like, let me just try that. And it's clunky for me at first, and then I get better, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it now. And God and I have a lot of conversations, and we've developed this relationship that I can describe as like when I first got here, I'm in the driver's seat telling God to pipe down, like I don't need to hear from you. To then I would move to the passenger seat, but I'm still like watch out, watch out. As a backseat driver in the passenger seat. And then I would get in the back seat. And now I'll ride in the trunk and keep the lid closed. And God can open the trunk whenever He feels like letting me out to participate in my life. And otherwise, I'm like, you just take it, right? And, we get to the 12th step. And of course, my sponsor tells me it's time for me to start sponsoring other women. And I don't know what anybody else says, but I say, I don't know how to do that. And she says, of course you do. You've had an experience here, right? You're a sober woman whose life has been transformed by the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're going to get in this book with them. You're going to start at the preface. You're going to read the first 164 pages, line by line, page by page together. And when it says to do something, you're going to do it. And the joy of writing somebody's name on page 164, I can't even describe it. I got hundreds of names written down in this book from the 17 years I've been sober. And there's a ton of names at the beginning of the book. And the further you get into the 164 pages, there's fewer and fewer names of where I stopped reading with that girl on that day and that girl on that day. And on page 164, I got 11 names in 17 years. I mean, it's insane to me how many people have started this but not finished. And I love those girls that I get to sponsor. And one of my sponsees had 1 year in January, and her sobriety birthday is on my natal birthday. And so it's kind of special, like, and she's all a numbers person. And so she's like, this is so weird. And I'm like, that is so weird. But when I got to hand her her 1 year chip on her sobriety birthday, I got to say to her, thank you for changing this day for me. Because one of my dearest friends that I got sober with in 2007, I spent one of my natal birthdays at his funeral. And he drank again and died of alcoholism at 42. So it was just such a beautiful, like, different experience to give her her chip on that same day and not have to think only about, Jimmy and how he died of alcoholism. So let's see, I got 3.5 minutes left to tell you what my life is like today. It's insane, it's beautiful, and it's wonderful. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I told you, just a horrible mom who wanted to escape her own, life. My son Ryan, this last year, when he did his emergency contact for his apartment, it said emergency contact, and he put my name, and it said relationship to student, and he wrote mother/best friend, and he sent me a screenshot of it. And I'm so grateful to my sponsor and the women in Alcoholics Anonymous who taught me how to be a mom, because I was a terrible mom when I got to you. And that husband I was married to, I completely blew up our life. And I'm glad to say that he's remarried to a wonderful woman. And yesterday we had an experience together that we shared. And he had a really terrible wife. But he has a really, really good ex-wife, and Alcoholics Anonymous told me how to show up for that man and make my amends all the time, every day, every chance I get, every avenue I can see to be helpful or take less and give him more. Let me do that. My sisters and my parents have a completely different experience with me. We used to, if dinner was at 5 for Christmas or something, they would tell me like, oh, why don't you come around 2? Because they knew I was going to be late. And I'd also show up drunk and I wouldn't lift a finger. And now I'm there early. If my sister asked me to bring one side dish, I'm going to bring 3. And, yours truly is queen of the dishes. Let me just do the dishes. And I just look for ways I can be helpful in my family. And, the God that I came here and was mad at, man, I thank him every day for my life. I mean, every day. He's given me the most beautiful life. He gives me things like a job that I pray really hard for, and then turn around and tell him why, oh God, I hate this job, right? But he goes, they're there. And he just gives me a gentle reminder, oh, don't you remember that's the thing you asked me for, and I gave it to you. And he lets me make mistakes, and we talk to each other in kind of funny ways. Sometimes my prayers are like, God, what the hell are you doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing. And he said, remember all those other times that you thought I didn't know what I was doing and look at what happened. And I just need to be reminded like, okay, you're in charge and I'm not. Um, if I ever stop doing for Alcoholics Anonymous what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me, I will be so disgusted with myself. And I'm so grateful for the old timers that are still around. I love newcomers, but I love those old timers that come every week to all those meetings to just be there for somebody new. Because if they weren't there for me, you'd certainly have a different speaker tonight. And the least I can do to repay that debt is to show up for newcomers at all my meetings. So I'm grateful for my life today. Thanks again, Eric, for having me. And I'm excited to hear from everybody else tonight.